Yan Yadamburu, Nana Dara, Yamalandi. Hello and good morning from Ngunnawal country and welcome.
Thanks, Richie, for joining us today in the sanctuary. Tell us, how long have Aboriginal people been managing these woodlands?
The Ngunnawal people have been managing this environment and what we now call Mulligans Flat for over 65,000 years.
Fantastic. What do you like about what we're trying to do at the sanctuary?
I think for me, as a Ngunnawal person, I can see the work that you're doing is putting it back to what it used to be. That, often we see a lot of land taken away and not put back to what it used to be. And again, that brings out the beautiful colours, the beautiful plants, the beautiful animals. As we just seen a minute ago, a kangaroo just come flying past us, and you don't see that often in urban areas. And having sanctuaries like this and Mulligans Flat taking care of it, it's just like we're taking care of it and putting it back to the way it should be.
Fantastic. Mate, what are you standing in front of? What's just behind
I'm
you there?
standing in front of a big massive gum, which is what we cut the coolamon out of. My son actually cut the coolamon out of here, and coolamon, it's a way of keeping our tradition alive, especially here in Mulligans Flat, where again the Ngunnawal people camped in here for periods of time. And again, we wanted to keep that tradition alive by keep it going. And thankfully, Mulligans Flat have that understanding that we still want to keep culture alive, especially the Ngunnawal culture, and passing on to the next generation, who then can pass it to the next generation. Our culture will never die.
Over the 15-year sanctuary journey, what do you think government has learnt from partnering with the university and the community at the sanctuary?
So I think we've learnt a lot about partnerships. I think we've seen the significant benefit of having a partnership at Mulligans. I think it's fair to say that the sanctuary itself and all the benefits it brings would not exist without the partnership. So it's at the core of what's been achieved here. The ACT government couldn't have built the fence, engaged the community in a way that we have, learnt how to restore the woodland without the partnership we have. So I think it brings knowledge, innovation, and really improved engagement with the community.
So what do you see as the main challenges from a government perspective on fostering a partnership like this from within government?
Yeah, so partnerships for government can be challenging. I think, as we've seen at Mulligans, it's brought a lot of benefits, but along the way we've had to consider how the, public service relates to the partnership. And so what we've done is we've looked to recruit people who into roles within government that work within the partnership that really look to use influence ahead of their legislative delegation, and so really create that even share of power wherever we possibly can. That's can be challenging for public servants because obviously we need to comply with our legislative requirements, but we're also trying to empower our partners.
What innovative practices have been really effective in the sanctuary?
There's been quite a few from the fence development and all our instruments that go on the fence to monitor the fence gates, through to how we've managed to bring in animals. But from my perspective, the most innovative thing that I've been involved with is the rabbit and fox eradication programs. And I guess in starting out those programs, we were typically using rifles to shoot rabbits. Then we went through phostoxin of dens and ripping dens, which are more traditional methods, through to shotguns, and then suddenly realised that all those sorts of methods weren't working super effectively. So we started using night vision, thermal imaging, and then from there looked around what other agencies were doing and came up with the use of a Judas rabbit, which would go out and seek out other rabbits. It'd also test out our camera network. And so that was super innovative at the time, and it worked. We got there in the end. We've eradicated rabbits from Mulligans Flat, and we're pretty much calling it now that we've got rid of them from Guru as well.
So what surprised you about coming into this role as a sanctuary manager? And what surprised you about managing the sanctuary?
The most surprising thing, I think, was probably the level of involvement from a number of different stakeholders. We're close to town, so you'd expect that, and I've worked in other areas around Canberra as well. The unique thing about Mulligans is that not only have you got your parks, your trust, your ANU, but you've got layers of those people. You've got layers of community that are involved, more so than other reserves that I've ever worked in. And that is surprising. I think the love that goes into Mulligans really sort of took me aback when I came in, but there's a good community around Mulligans, and I think that's a massive asset.
Adrian, so what makes the sanctuary different to other conservation reserves in Canberra?
Well, this particular reserve, there was a decision made back in the mid-2000s to use it as a place to better understand how to improve boxgum grassy woodlands for biodiversity. So although ACT by proportional land area has a large area of boxgum grassy woodlands, there's a recognition that it was a custodian of important woodlands, but Mulligans was the focus, Mulligans Flat, of where we might do some research and better understand how to do that. So what we've done in the last 16 years is really focus a designed experiment and use the place as an outdoor laboratory to tease apart what can you do in these woodlands, recognising that there's been a lot of ecological changes in them that have degraded them and that we want to bring them back. And often we don't have the baselines to work to, so we have to recreate the baseline as well. So at Mulligans Flat, what is different is that we're trying to tease apart in one particular place learnings that can then be applied more broadly in the ACT and beyond.
Fantastic. So I understand there's more than 50 publications that have come out of the place already. What's the long-term experiment revealed in the last 15 years?
Well, it's really interesting because when we started our work, we didn't know that we'd be here 16 years later. We certainly were thinking long term, but this has really been a kind of snowballing process in the research. And what we found is our treatments, we had lots of deadwood, for example, in 2007. We are still seeing the impacts of that deadwood on reptiles, for example. So in a usual study, you might do a short-term study, see whether you have effect, and that's the end of the story. We can still detect impacts on that deadwood, and it still can be seen, and it'll probably be there for decades, many decades later. So the deadwood is a really good example of where you still see the long-term effects, and it's a good argument why we would do research long-term, because you can follow the impacts of the interventions that you might put in place in a woodland.
So Millie, why are we sitting with a spotted-tailed quoll?
So this is a really exciting project that the Woodlands and Wetlands Trust is being involved with, along with ACT Government and Australian National University. And our aim with this guy and his brother is to reintroduce an apex predator into the Mulligans Flat Woodland Sanctuary context. We have introduced predators into Mulligans Flat before. Once we removed cats and foxes, we were able to put back things like bettongs and the eastern quoll. Eastern quolls eat anything from insects to something the same size as them, which is about a rabbit's size. But we don't have anything larger to eat things like possums or perhaps even baby wallabies. So that's where these guys come in. So the spotted-tailed quolls are technically an apex predator, and we're trialling the reintroduction of them into Mulligans Flat to see if it's possible, to see if they'll survive and to see what they'll eat.
Millie, tell us about how the community's involved and your experiences of how the community visits the place or uses the place.
Yeah, so Mulligans is super unique because obviously it's a foxproof sanctuary that exists on the outskirts of suburbia in a city. So us at the Woodlands and Wetlands Trust, we really feel like we've got almost a responsibility of educating the community on the importance of a place like Mulligans Flat, but also giving people the opportunity to engage in nature, whether that's people coming in and volunteering to do weeding, or whether that's a group of preschool children that we bring out and show them, you know, a wallaby that they might not have seen before. So we think that engaging the community not only provides them with that knowledge of what we have lost in Australia, but also gives them an opportunity to engage in nature and to have those nature experiences that potentially are scary to some people. So we definitely love bringing people in and kind of showing them, giving them a bit of background knowledge with our sanctuary and what's in it.
So Millie, tell us a bit about your hopes and aspirations for the future of biodiversity conservation in Australia.
Yeah, so I think it's really important that we are trying new things and learning as much as we can. Whether they work or don't work, I think it's really important that we do give it a go. I guess like what we're doing here with the spotted-tailed quolls, we don't know if they'll survive, but we really want to give it a whirl and learn as much as we can about the reintroduction of spotted-tailed quolls. I think the more that we're not scared of trying new things, the more we can learn as a whole group, and hopefully from those learnings we can protect areas and protect species and prevent losing any more.